Chapter 24, The Poet. ¿Quién es ese? Asked my mother. We were approaching the church. A blond giant was being searched for weapons out front. No sé. I didn't know who it was. 1 second later, Angel came running toward us, eating a hot dog and yelling, "Hey, check it out. It's Ronald Summerland." Who? I asked. Ronald Summerland. But I knew who it was when we got even closer and saw the giant girlfriend, Jane Fonda. Yep, Jane Fonda, the famous actress. The blonde giant man she was with was Donald Sutherland, another movie star. Mammy and I got right behind them to be checked in. Everyone around Fonda was excited, saying things like, "Mira la Jane," or "She cut her hair." And I bet the young lords got in line to search her, stuff like that. Inside the church, she and Sutherland went to talk to the young lords, and it was like they left a trail of stardust behind them. A little while later, another blonde, Pia Lindstrom, the newscaster, showed up. They were really happy to see each other, and I thought I had never seen such glowing white people in El Barrio since Mayor John Lindsay paid a visit. Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland were so dazzling to look at as they were on a big movie screen, but not as dazzling or shocking or confusing as the dark poet we were to hear a few hours later after the movie stars were long gone. And there were the usual at least 100 people around going here and there. Angel and some kids were tossing a ball back and forth in the front hall. Lydia's kids were playing tag, and Megdalia and I were trying to have a conversation over the noise about how Jane Fonda looked in person as opposed to how she looked in the movies. "She's not as big as I thought," said Megdalia. "I know," I said, "but she's still taller than I'll ever be." Mammy was crocheting while she hovered over me so she didn't even hear a young lord calling everybody into the main room for a poetry reading. "Poetry?" I said to Megdalia. "I hate poetry." "I know, me too. It's so boring," she said. Let's get out of here." We headed toward the door, but it was hopeless. Mommy was one step behind me. "Well, let's at least all sit together," Megdalia offered hopefully. That's why she was a good friend. If I couldn't leave, she was willing to sit through the boring poetry with me. Megdalia, Angel, Mammy, and I headed for the few seats in the back. Catching Abuela's eyes, I motioned her to join us too. The poet introduced herself shyly. "Pedro Piete." Megdalia, Angel, and I giggled. Mammy gave me a stern look. How stupid. She didn't even know what we were going to listen to, and she still wanted me to be polite. The poet was medium sized and dark with short curly hair. I couldn't tell how old he was because his shirt cuffs were unbuttoned and flapping around like little kids. He began to recite his poem in a droning voice. I started to laugh. I couldn't help it. "What's so funny, Evelyn?" asked Angel. "Nothing." "No, really. Nothing really." Truth was, I didn't know why I was laughing. The poet went on about how tough it was to be Puerto Rican, like I already didn't know. "What Puerto Ricans is she talking about?" asked Angel. "Shh," I whispered. Megdalia laughed. "Salins," said my mother. "Listen to the poeta." "What's a poeta?" asked Angel. "Shh," said the people around us. The poet went on reciting about how Puerto Ricans worked and worked and worked and never got nowhere. The crowd shuffled and moved around, settling. Somebody's foot tapped the floor unconsciously. Lydia urgently whispered to her children that they be still. A tiny old lady coughed. There was a sneeze followed by a few giggles. The poet started in about how Puerto Ricans will die without any of their dreams ever coming true. "I just want to know who exactly are the people that he's talking about," pressed Angel, beginning to sound worried. "Angel, it's a poem. They are not real people," I answered impatiently. "Now be quiet." When the poet said how Puerto Ricans never got good jobs and how they could never ever live in a nice neighborhood, it got unnaturally quiet. The little kids stopped wiggling and began looking into their parents' faces anxiously. Not because they understood the poet's words, but because they could feel that something was up. When the poet said how sometimes Puerto Ricans got so mad about everything they took it out on each other, somebody sniffled and had to blow their nose, and some kids laughed at that. But I could tell nobody thought this was funny. Angel shifted anxiously in his seat. Then the poet said, "All these Puerto Ricans will die, never even knowing why." Evelyn, why are they going to die? Suddenly, a wave of anger flushed through me. This poem is not about anyone that we know, but it kind of sounds like he's talking about your mother, too. I pinched Angel hard. Tears sprang to his eyes. Then I was embarrassed and sorry I had to look away. And then when the poet said how much happier Puerto Ricans would be if they just acknowledged their beauty and greatness and capacity for love, my own tears took me by surprise. Pushing down the lump of emotion threatening to publicly humiliate me, I checked out Mommy and Abuela. Abuela's eyes were bright with understanding, but Mommy looked as exposed as if she had been caught in the street in her underwear. In the end, the crowd's reaction was mixed. Some looked surprised, some angry, and some didn't know where to look. And some took it out on their kids. I could tell because I heard some soft slaps, some yelps, and some rough putting on their coats. Some really loved it and showed it by standing up and cheering and whooping and hollering, as if Ray Barretto had just finished playing a Congo drum solo. Angel looked confused. He shouldn't have been angry with me. Instead, he looked to me for answers. I looked to Abuela and Mammy, wanting to know what they thought, or maybe, really, to figure out how I should feel myself. But I got no clue from them except that they both looked like they were about to cry. Abuela because she liked it so much, and Mammy because she didn't. However, anybody felt, I knew this. My heart was full of painful love, and everything he said was as true as the sky, as big as the sky, and 5 trillion hands could not cover it up. And I was glad it was out and couldn't be taken back, and more than one could fold up the sky and put it in your back pocket. On the way home, Abuela and I made plans to collect more clothes for the clothing drive. "What time can you meet me at the church tomorrow?" asked Abuela. "How about 10 in the morning?" "Okay," I said. "Bring boxes," she added. "I got plenty of boxes in the bodega," said Mammy quietly. We were all speaking quietly like we didn't want to disturb one another in our separate worlds of thought.